Okay, let's dive right into this explainer by setting up what might literally be the ultimate historical mystery regarding the origins of absolute monotheism in Arabia. For the longest time, the traditional story we've been told is pretty straightforward, right? The Arabian Peninsula was this landscape of strict polytheism, and then suddenly, in the 7th century, a completely new concept of a singular god was introduced. But as we dig into the archaeological and linguistic records, a completely different and frankly way more intriguing picture starts to emerge. So pose this to yourself. Did Islam introduce a new god, or did it redefine an existing one? It's a subtle shift in perspective, but it honestly changes everything we know about the period. Because if absolute monotheism centers on Allah, we absolutely have to ask whether that name was already known before Islam. And if the name already existed, well, then the real historical question becomes much sharper. We aren't looking at the invention of a deity, but rather an incredible, radical transformation of one. And here is the fact that totally disrupts all our expectations. The name Allah is actually carved into desert stones centuries before the birth of Islam, literally carved in stone. We are not talking about later poetry that might have been rewritten or historical narratives compiled hundreds of years after the fact. We're talking about contemporary, non-theological snapshots. These inscriptions don't explain theology, they just record daily life. And what they record is absolutely stunning. Chapter 1. Hard Evidence from Stones. To really understand this, we're going to put on our archaeological detective hats for a second, shifting our focus away from later historical writings to the undeniable physical epigraphic evidence left behind by the people who actually lived in late antiquity. Tracing the timeline back, it proves that the concept of a high god term was deeply, deeply embedded in Semitic usage well before the 7th century. Going as far back as the 1st century BCE, we find Saphitic and Hizmic inscriptions carved by nomadic groups. And these include very personal invocations like, by Allah and may Allah remember. Then, moving forward between the 1st and 4th centuries CE in the Nabatean region, around Petra, we see the generic term Allah used to elevate a singular deity concept. The linguistic continuity across hundreds and hundreds of years is undeniable. Now, this brings us to what is basically our smoking gun in this investigation, the Zebedid inscription. Discovered in Syria and dating to exactly 512 CE, this is a trilingual carving in Greek, Syriac, and Arabic, and it explicitly begins with the phrase, in the name of God, or Bismillah Allah. This is literal proof, a physical receipt, showing that Arabic-speaking populations were using this exact formula liturgically over a century before the Quran was revealed. Chapter 2, Linguistics and the Monotheist Soup. To really grasp how this word functioned day to day, we have to broaden our lens and look at the shared linguistic and religious ecosystem of the Middle East during late antiquity. When we dig into regional linguistics, it beautifully illustrates a profound point. Allah wasn't originally a strict standalone name. Most scholars agree it's actually a contraction of the Arabic al-Ilah, literally meaning the God. And the regional parallels are so cool. In Syriac, which was used heavily by Christians of the era, the term is Allah. In Hebrew, we see El or Elohim. Arabia wasn't existing in a vacuum at all. It was part of a shared Semitic religious and linguistic ecosystem where this root word was the standard go-to translation for the singular creator. Scholar Fred Donner perfectly captures the environment with this insight. The early believers were moving within a linguistic world where Allah was the standard translation for the monotheistic God of the Bible. Because they were already moving within this established linguistic world, the Quran doesn't actually spend time introducing who Allah is. It just assumes the audience already knows him as the creator, the God of the heavens. The title had already become a proper name in the cultural consciousness. So the absolutely crucial point here is that this wasn't just a matter of linguistics, it was geopolitics. Think about the immense pressure on the Arabian Peninsula. To the north, you've got the mighty Byzantine Empire with their single Christian state god. To the east, the massive Sassanid Empire with their Zoroastrian state god. As scholar Robert Hoyland points out, to compete as a world power, the Arabs needed an exclusive deity just as grand and all-encompassing as the gods of the Romans or the Persians. It was for sure a political necessity, just as much as a theological one. Chapter 3, Mecca's Absentee Landlord. Let's zoom back in from those great umpires and focus on exactly how this high god functioned in the daily practical lives of the Meccans. To understand their mindset, we need to define a crucial historical concept, deisodiosis. It translates to an idol god or an absentee landlord. And this is the exact theological problem the Meccans were dealing with. They absolutely believed in Allah as the ultimate creator, no doubt about it. But they viewed him as way too distant, too majestic, or frankly, just too far away to care about their mundane daily struggles, things like rain, crops, and health. And that leads us to the reality of pre-Islamic Mecca. The dominant Quraysh tribe actually branded themselves as the Hums, or the people of Allah. They recognized him as the Lord of this house, referring to the Kaaba. But here is the incredible anomaly. Despite the Kaaba housing numerous idols, there were zero statues or physical representations of Allah. This empty pedestal is a massive historical anomaly. It shows they already gave him a unique, formless supremacy, even while they were relying on smaller, localized gods as intermediaries for their daily chores. Chapter 4. The Geopolitical Name Game. How did this local Meccan reality compare to the rest of the peninsula? When we analyze the epigraphic evidence across the wider region, a really fascinating rivalry emerges. In the north, as we've seen, the dominant concept for the formless high god was Allah. But down in the south, in the highly developed region of Yemen, the inscriptions show a totally different high god dominating the landscape. He was known as Rahmanan, which translates to the merciful. And here is where it gets really brilliant. The Quran didn't just pick one regional favorite over the other. It synthesized northern and southern theology. By frequently invoking Ar-Rahman, the merciful, right alongside Allah, it essentially merged the northern and southern high gods into one unified peninsula-wide deity. This wasn't just a religious shift, guys. It was a profound, unifying political action that bound disparate tribes together. Chapter 5. The Radical Monotheistic Shift. Okay, we have all the puzzle pieces now. The inscriptions, the linguistic history, the absentee landlord concept, and the regional politics. So what actually happened in 7th century Mecca? So, pulling all these threads together, what's our final conclusion? The true revolution of Islam wasn't introducing a brand new name to people who had never heard it before. The revolution was demanding absolute exclusivity. It took Allah from being a shared high god at the very top of a pyramid of lesser deities and completely redefined him as an absolute, singular, exclusive god. It literally flattened the pyramid entirely. As scholar Nikolai Sinai states perfectly, the Quran assumes recognition of Allah, but redefines his nature and exclusivity. Islam didn't find Allah in a vacuum. It reclaimed him from a complex network of tribal politics. The shock to the Meccan system wasn't, hey, there is a god named Allah. The shock was, hey, you know that high god you already worship? He's the only one, and he doesn't want you praying to anyone else. The way this was achieved is what scholars call a polemical reversal, and it basically worked in 3 logical steps. First, acknowledge the Arabs' own existing belief that Allah is the creator. Second, ask them a completely logical question. If he truly is supreme, why on earth are you praying to middlemen for rain? And third, demand a complete divorce of Allah from the rest of the pantheon. The radical shift was declaring that the high god was directly accessible. Absolutely no intermediaries required. But wait, this leaves us with one absolutely massive, lingering question. If the pre-Islamic Arabs believed Allah was the supreme creator, the aniconic lord of the house, why did their theology claim he had daughters? Who were these feminine divine figures, and were they actual objects of worship, or just a clever political metaphor that the Quran used to dismantle their entire system? Well, that is a fascinating mystery we are going to unravel in our next explainer on the Daughters of Allah. You really won't want to miss it.